All right, let's dive into something that's happening all around us, all the time. We're talking about operant conditioning. It's this huge psychological idea that basically explains why we do the things we do. It all comes down to consequences and how they shape, well, pretty much everything.
I mean, just think about it for a second. How do you actually get a new habit to stick? Or on the flip side, how do you kick a bad one to the curb? Whether we're talking about training a puppy, teaching a kid, or even just trying to get ourselves to go to the gym, there's a science to it. And a big part of that science is called operant conditioning.
So, what is this thing, really? Well, at its heart, it's actually super simple. Operant conditioning is just a type of learning where a behavior is controlled by what happens right after. An action leads to a consequence, and that link, that connection, is one of the most powerful forces in how we learn. Once you see it, you're going to start seeing it absolutely everywhere.
Okay, to make this crystal clear, let's use a classic example, one that's maybe a little messy. Picture this. You've got a dog, and it has this unfortunate habit of thinking your living room carpet is its personal bathroom. Not great. Well, operant conditioning gives us a whole toolkit for how to solve this little problem. And that brings us to the main event. See, there isn't just one way to handle our dog's behavior. There are actually 4 distinct methods we can use, and they all fit into this really neat framework.
And here they are. It all boils down to this simple grid. You've got 2 main goals: reinforcement, which is all about increasing a behavior, and punishment, which is about decreasing one. Now, here is the absolute key, the thing you have to remember. Positive and negative do not mean good and bad. Think of it like math. Positive means you add something, negative means you take something away. Let's break down each one.
First up, the one we all kind of know, positive reinforcement. The goal here is to increase a good behavior, like, say, the dog going to the bathroom outside. So to do that, you add something pleasant. Every single time the dog does its business on the grass, boom, it gets a cookie. You're adding a reward, which makes it way more likely the dog will do it again. Okay, now for the one that always trips people up, negative reinforcement. But stick with me, it's not that complicated. You are still trying to increase a behavior, but this time you do it by removing something unpleasant. So for instance, once the dog successfully goes to the bathroom outside, you immediately take off its uncomfortable leash. The dog learns, hey, when I do the right thing, that annoying thing goes away. All right, let's switch gears to punishment. Remember, punishment is always about decreasing an unwanted behavior, like, pooping on the carpet. With positive punishment, you add an unpleasant consequence. So the moment the dog has its accident, you might give a firm no or make a loud noise it doesn't like. You're adding something bad to make that behavior less likely to happen again. And finally, we have negative punishment. Again, we're trying to decrease the bad behavior, but this time we do it by removing something the dog likes. So if the dog messes up the carpet, maybe you immediately take him out of the room, away from the family and the comfy spot. He loses a privilege. So here's the takeaway. Reinforcement builds habits, while punishment is meant to break them. Now, this isn't just some abstract theory somebody cooked up. These ideas were famously put to the test in some really groundbreaking experiments. So let's head into the lab for a minute. The guy whose name is basically synonymous with all of this is B.F. Skinner. He was a behaviorist, which just means he believed that the only thing we could really study scientifically was behavior you can actually see and measure, not all the mysterious stuff going on inside our heads. So Skinner built this special chamber, which famously became known as the Skinner box. He put a rat inside, and here's what would happen, broken down into what they called the ABCs of behavior. First, A for antecedent. The rat's just wandering around, and totally by accident, it bumps a lever. Then, B, her behavior. It notices something happened, so it presses the lever again, on purpose this time. And then C for consequence. A little pellet of food drops out. Well, you can guess what happens next. The rat learns very, very quickly. Press the lever, get the food. But this is where Skinner's work gets really fascinating. He found that if the rat got food every single time it pressed the lever, its behavior was pretty predictable. But then he tried something else. What if the reward was random? Sometimes you get food, sometimes nothing. Suddenly, the rat's behavior became compulsive, almost obsessive. It would just press that lever over and over and over again. If that sounds familiar, it's because that exact principle, random reinforcement, is the engine that makes slot machines and even the notifications on your phone so addictive. Skinner's work definitely didn't just stay in the lab. It had these huge and sometimes pretty controversial implications for how we see ourselves and human nature itself. Yeah, this was Skinner's most radical idea. He basically argued that everything we do is just a reaction to our environment. It's a super complex web of responses to all the reinforcements and punishments we've gotten our whole lives. So, from his point of view, that feeling we have that we're making our own independent choices, he thought that was just an illusion.
Now, controversial or not, you can't argue with the practical impact his ideas have had. I mean, they're the foundation for things like behavioral therapy, which helps people overcome phobias. They're used in superstructured settings like military drills, and of course, they are the absolute bedrock of modern animal training.
So now that you've got the theory down, how about we try a little experiment? You can actually see this stuff in action for yourself with a really simple, fun little game.
Okay, here's how you do it. Have a friend leave the room. While they're gone, the rest of the group picks a secret task for them to do. Something simple, like touching a specific book on a bookshelf. When your friend comes back in, nobody can talk. The only tool you have is applause. As they get closer to the book, you clap louder. As they move away, you get quiet. You are literally using positive reinforcement to shape their behavior in real time. It is honestly shocking how quickly you can guide someone to the target without saying a single word.
And that little game brings us right back to that big, kind of unsettling question that Skinner raised. When you see for yourself just how powerfully your actions can be shaped by simple rewards, it really forces you to wonder how many of our choices are truly our own, and how many are just the product of a lifetime of conditioning. It's a fascinating thing to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.